Good evening, everybody. At this time, please silence your cell phones and be advised these proceedings are being recorded. For those physically present in the council chambers who desire to address the city council during the meeting, please complete the request to speak form available at the front entrance of the council chamber at present and present it to the city clerk. Speakers physically present and participating via Zoom will be called upon the appropriate time, and each person will be allowed 3 minutes of speaking time. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. And tonight we're going to honor this meeting in the memory of Berga Lessinger. She passed away. And Berga, strong community volunteer. She actually worked up here in City Hall a lot and just a great person, but she went home to be with the Lord on Sunday. So we're closing memory of Berga. So we'll go and convene this regular meeting at the City Council Tuesday, November 14th at 2023 at 6 p.m. The invocation will be given by Pastor Steve from Azure Hill Seventh-day Church, Adventist Church, and Shad Boyd will be leading as a pledge of allegiance. So please stand.
You may join me in prayer. Oh God, we have just come through a time where we have remembered those who serve our country, and for that we are very grateful. Tonight I remain grateful for those who serve us here in Grand Terrace. We turn to you for blessing, for health over our families, prosperity in this community, for purpose in our nation and peace in the world. So allow us to speak with clarity, to hear with grace, and let wisdom permeate our deliberations. We thank you. Amen.
Amen. All right. I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Steve. Thank you, Shad. We have no AB 2449 disclosure. Madam City Clerk, can I get roll call, please?
Councilmember Henderson.
Present.
Councilmember Allen.
Present.
Councilmember Rodriguez-Robles.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Wilson.
I am here.
Mayor Hussey.
Present.
Mayor, you have quorum.
Okay. Item A, reordering additionals removal from items from the agenda. Do we have any?
No additions or deletions.
Okay. Item B, public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to comment on any item not appearing on the regular agenda. Because of restriction contained in California law, and the City Council may not discuss or act on any item not on agenda, but may briefly respond to statements made or ask questions for clarification. The mayor may also request a brief response from staff to question raised during the public comment, or may request the matter be agendized for future meetings. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comment?
Yes, resident Jeff Peterson.
Mr. Peterson.
That was a lot faster than last time I was here. There's about 75 other people. So I own a small roofing business located here in town, do quite a bit of work in the city, as our company has done for over 30 years. Recently I went to City Hall to pull a re-roof permit, which to my surprise cost me $632.60, which is outrageous. I asked the gentleman working the counter when the prices of the permits doubled, and he stated that it was voted on by City Council and didn't have any opposition within the past couple months. I went through the city agendas for all of 2023 and I couldn't find it listed there. I may have missed it, but I did not see anything about permit rates. Grand Terrace was already on the high end for permits, but I find this ridiculous. Less than a year ago, for almost the identical permit, was $321.25. I feel as a business owner that lives and works out of the city, we could have been notified either a letter sent to any of the 4 roofing contractors that live within the city limits, or at least had a notice at the building and safety counter. For reference, other cities in the area, earlier this year in Hoopa Valley, $190, and these are all for the same permits. Highland, $173, City of Riverside, $42, City of Yucaipa, $328. Huntington Beach, for a much larger home, was $468, compared to Grand Terrace's $632. I find the price of almost $300 more than any other city in the area unnecessary and would like City Council to please revisit the issue with better notice given to the residents of the city, even if it's only an email sent out to the contractors who hold a city business license. I'd also like to note that with these price hikes, I've noticed several issues with the inspection counter, like, for instance, showing up a year after a final inspection was already completed on my neighbor's roof to do another final roof inspection. They completely miss an inspection that I had called and scheduled for. Thankfully, Lewis saw the issue when I called around 4 p.m. and still came out same day to do the inspection. He's been great behind the counter with the inspections, but there have been multiple scheduling issues, and I feel like the price of permits to be double what they are of other cities. There shouldn't be issues with the inspectors not showing up or showing up over a year after the inspection has already been signed off. There's also a new technology fee of $43 attached to new permits of the City of Grand Terrace, and I'd like to know what new technology we're using that we weren't using earlier this year and how it's making things better. And I want to give my thoughts and prayers to the Lesser family. I actually did a roof for Berga. She was a wonderful wonderful lady, and I'm very sorry to hear of her passing. So may God rest her soul.
Thank you, sir. We have your information. I'm sure the city manager will get a hold of you. You guys can make a meeting, any questions he has. All right, next,
Anthony Lopez.
Mr. Lopez. Mrs. Lopez?
I'm so sorry, I've never done one of these before.
If you could put the microphone closer to you. There you go. Thank you.
I've been a resident here since 1990 in Grand Terrace. Never had any problems here. I do have a concern now. My concern is the new J.C. Wallace house that has popped up here. I've noticed the changes of security cameras all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but security cameras, the lights. Then I started noticing strangers. Mind you, I live right behind the back gates. My home is right here. So I started noticing strange people in the back screaming. Concerning, I have a granddaughter that lives with us. She's 3 years old. So I've called the place to talk to the director to ask her about putting a bigger fence, a larger fence, because I noticed that they do have a chain link fence in the front. So I wanted to talk to her about doing that. And they have never contacted me. Nobody has contacted me. I've called multiple times, and no one has contacted me. So now we are noticing that people are jumping the fence. Their clients are jumping the fence. And so I went over there one day to go try to make an appointment and talk to the security, and nobody's there but security, and had some conversations, and I feel very uncomfortable with the clients that are there. So I said, of course, and then I'd like to make another appointment. No contact again. Friday, there was an incident. One of the clients was back there in the back fence, and as my family was coming in with my granddaughter, the man started verbally attacking my family and tried to jump the fence. And basically, he was probably going to attack them if they didn't come in the house. I ran over there to make a complaint, me and my husband. And as we got in there, the man tried to attack my husband physically, and the security guards had to go in between him. And I noticed he was fighting, this man was fighting with everybody in there, and the security guard said that he had attacked another younger person in there. It was very violent in there at the time. And he also started the building on fire. So that tells me what kind of patience they have in there. So I'm very concerned about that place. I called the deputies before when I was there, no deputies. Ambulances were there, fire
Okay,
departments
hold
were there.
on, ma'am, hold on. Do you guys wish to hear some more, or are you good? Does council wish to? Okay, ma'am, your 3 minutes are up, but we got your information, and we'll follow up. I'll have the sheriff follow up with you, and I'll give you a call, too.
Okay.
You know, it is concerning. I'm sorry you're going through this.
It
but
is very
It's not
concerning.
going on blind ears or deaf eyes or.
I appreciate
Okay,
it,
so
please.
it's-
All I want is a fence and something done. It's
Okay.
very concerning.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Cindy Bidney.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, residents of Grand Terrace, thank you for hearing me today to address a matter of great concern that has recently impacted our community, the transformation of J.C. Wallace Place. From a senior Alzheimer's facility to a mental health rehabilitation live-in facility for young people. The opening of this facility has introduced a complex lifestyle into our city, and it's important that we come together to discuss the challenges we now face. The complexities associated with mental health care require our attention, understanding, and it's also crucial to recognize the impact this has on our community. One notable consequence has been the unfortunate increase in panhandling, vagrancy. Most recent, there have been disturbances and altercations at the back gate of the facility, posing a threat to the safety and well-being of our residents. This has imposed a nuisance for our neighborhood. We must acknowledge the concerns raised by our neighbors who have experienced this disruption firsthand. It is our responsibility as a community to address these challenges head-on and work towards solutions and prioritize the safety and security of the Grand Terrace residents. A nuisance is a legal action to redress harm arising from use of one's property. The two types of nuisances are private nuisance and public nuisance. A private nuisance is a civil wrong. It is the unreasonable, unwarranted, or unlawful use of one's property in a manner that substantially interferes with the enjoyment of or use of another individual's property without an actual trespass or physical invasion in the land. A public nuisance is a criminal wrong. It is an act or omission that obstructs, damages, or inconveniences the rights of the community. In moving forward, let us advocate for increased security measures, proactive community engagement initiatives, and open lines of communication between the facility and our neighborhood. I beat it.
Thank you. New record.
Janice Slocum.
Good evening. I'm Jenna Slocum. I've lived here over 30 years, and I live on the same street as my fine neighbors right here, and never, ever have I felt alarmed as I have this week hearing about this incident. I've always felt pretty safe, but I don't now. And I think that what I understand is what I heard is that it took over an hour for a sheriff to respond to their call for assistance regarding this matter or this situation. So I really want us to, come together as a community and find a resolve for this so that we can once again feel safe in our community and our neighborhood. I walk every day right around that corner, and I have seen, like they mentioned, people hanging over the fence, and I don't know, I didn't want to feel intimidated by them. They're just people, but now that I hear this, it makes me a lot more uncomfortable. So I please implore you to find out more information, what more security presence that they can create for this facility. I wish them all the luck in the world, on their recoveries, but it should not be at the expense of our safety. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Jay Bartman.
Hello. Does everyone know the name of this facility we're talking about? What's the name of it again, my neighbors? The J.C. Wallace House. The J.C. Wallace House. I want you all to memorize that, because we're going to try to bring it to the forefront as much as possible. Grand Terrace probably will not be looking so good to folks. Now, I understand you want to put a development in between Canal and Reed Avenue off Barton Road. We understand you want to put some apartments in there. How many is it? How many do you guys propose to put in there?
Sir, this isn't an ask a question, this is your statement.
Okay, this is my statement. This proposal, I would like, for all the people who are gonna rent that place, I'd like for you to give them a packet of all the problems that they've had there. You know, is this the kind of place you want to move in? Probably not the way they got it set up over there. But I got to tell you, folks, this is really a bad situation. I stood at my front door, and I watched them break down the wall to get the fire out of it. That one of their associates, what do we call them? Clients. One of their clients started the fire in the wall because he was not happy. I've seen that guy jumping over the fence almost every day. He's not happy a lot. So there's something going on there, folks. They hauled him out of there, from what I understand. They know who did it, and they went in and they arrested him. I don't know if he's back yet. I expect it won't be long. But please, if you can help us on this situation, not only for us, what about for the new people you want to move in there too? I may not be around when that happens, I don't know, but we would appreciate it if you all would do something. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
We have no more speakers.
Okay, well, thank you. And rest assured, the city is looking into situations. And our sheriff is too. So I'm sorry you guys are going through this. I know we have J.C. Wallace here to represent, but our city concern is for the residents and the quality of life here, and that was brought up during the meetings. All right, so thank you guys for coming out. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. Special presentation done. Consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They'll be acted upon the city council at any one time without discussion. Any council member, staff member, or citizen may request removal of the item from the consent calendar for discussion. Do we have any requests to remove any items? No? All right, can I get a motion for the consent calendar?
I'll give a motion to move the consent calendar in its entirety.
Second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Allen, a second by Councilmember Henderson. City Clerk, do we have any public comment on the consent calendar? No?
No, we do not.
All right. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, public hearing none, unfinished business none, new business. Item G5, the Community Benefit Fund granted award for the Grand Terrace Cars and Coffee Santa Claus Toy Drive Cruise, an amount of $1,000 presented by Christine.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, Christine Clayton, Finance Director. So, unfortunately, Johan was unable to be here to help give his information, but I do have an email that he sent us. And this is their 4th annual cruise for the holidays, where they collect toys for multiple locations and multiple places and then give them out to needy children. And the funds are going to the funds will support community voting on the top 3 picks from the cruise, and they're working on details for the prizes along with the framed certificates to thank people. And they are requesting $1,000 from the Community Benefit Fund.
That's it. So they're requesting $1,000 for our annual toy drive. Okay.
Yes, they are.
Does council have any questions? No? Good question. Public comment?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Deliberation, anybody? Would like to make a motion or move forward?
I move the item.
I second.
Moved by Councilman Rollis, second by Councilman Henderson. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Item 6, approval of the one-third amendment of this development agreement with Lewis and Developers and reimbursement agreement with Lewis Land and Developers presented by City Manager. Our City Attorney.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm here to present on the proposed approval of a third amendment to the DDA with Lewis Land Developers, as well as a reimbursement agreement. These goals are, 1, ensure fiscal viability by securing appropriate cost recovery for services, as well as promoting economic development by developing proactive economic development plan to support retention and expansion of existing businesses. So a little bit of background. The city entered into a development and disposition agreement with Lewis Land Developers back in December of 2016, selling approximately 44 acres to develop a residential project. The DDA was amended twice in 2017, in February and in April. And of note for tonight, as part of the DDA, Section 16 provided that the city has the right to repurchase the property if the developer did not commence grading within 7 years from the closing date. Well, the 7-year period is coming up in May of 2024, and the grading has yet to be commenced. That said, the developer has been in the process of developing and pursuing the land use entitlements for the project. There is an EIR that has been prepared, a general plan amendment, a specific plan for the full development, a zone change, and tentative track map. Those are all being reviewed and processed by our staff. In furtherance of their project, the developer has requested a 90-day extension of the outside grading commencement date. The plan is, in the interim, that we would be working on each of the entitlements. We are also working on a development agreement that would provide specific benefits to the city that would also be presented along with these documents and potentially other revisions to the DDA itself. We are, city manager and I have worked on ensuring that the city gets certain things as part of these deal points, including specific hard deadlines for them to meet as part of the project. And the next point as well, which I'll be getting into shortly, is reimbursing the city's costs to ensure the city is not footing any of the bill, but I'll get to that shortly. So the proposed third amendment would have the parties agree to extend the outside grading commencement date for 90 days, which would be expired in July of next year. It will allow the parties to negotiate important outstanding matters relating to the project, which, as I mentioned, we're already working on. It would also propose that the city manager would have the authority to execute certain documents on behalf of the city, including additional extensions if need be, if reasonable and warranted. The second issue is reimbursement. In projects of this nature, it is very common that the city's costs, whether it's consultant costs, attorney's fees, anything of that sort, are fully reimbursed by the developer so that the city is not footing the bill for spending time on this project. This, in my opinion, should have been negotiated back when the project was originally approved. It was not. However, the developer has in good faith voluntarily reimbursed the city's costs all along. That said, we are recommending that we have a formal reimbursement agreement that is written and binding on both parties. And the developer has agreed to that. So we will finalize the amount that is owed through today's date and incorporate that into the agreement, but otherwise they will agree to paying all our costs going forward. So it would include staff time, consultant costs, engineering costs, consultant costs for the environmental review, things of that sort. They will agree to make sure that they're paid up on all previous costs that have been incurred prior to the proposed approval tonight, and they will deposit $100,000 for future expenses. And obviously, as we draw down, they will replenish that as need be. So tonight, before you is a draft resolution which would approve both the DDA amendment as well as the reimbursement agreement. Both in the resolution authorizes the city manager to execute both documents. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Does council have any question? Mayor Pro Tem Wilson?
Oh,
Yeah, it's up to you.
thank you. I guess I'm up. Mr. Attorney, to your knowledge, has anyone, compared to the current tentative map to the city concept approval several years ago?
To my knowledge, no, but I would defer to the city manager on that.
Are you asking, have we changed anything from the
I'm
concept?
asking if when the city council approved a concept for this project so that the Lewis Corporation or whatever derivative of that is in charge of this could feel a kind of a satisfaction that they could move forward in the processing of the project, which is no small chunk of change. At that point, there was a concept approval, and the concept approval was almost like a regular tentative map. There were a lot of things, it wasn't actually in a development agreement, which was to our chagrin, but they weren't there yet. Now we have a tentative map before us, and it's backed up by specific plan documents and so on. And there's been a lot of water under the bridge. And what I'm concerned about is Grand Terrace has experienced over time a lack of historical, produce. And so I'm concerned, I was there and I remember it, and I might even been the chairman of the planning commission at the time. And it seems to me that, it bears review to make sure that a lot of changes aren't to the detriment to what the city council originally approved.
So what they're proposing right now, and we are well down the environmental process. Essentially, the environmental documents done, the specific plan documents done. We're in the development agreement discussion. The rest of it is essentially done. What you're seeing as far as the specific plan and the land use is very, very consistent with what came out. I mean, typically, there's some movements for flood control and those type of things, but there's no wholesale changes. It's very consistent with what's been proposed all along.
What I'm concerned about is that there was a kind of a commercial element that was incorporated within the project, and that was quickly abandoned at a point, but nothing really came to us in the meantime to be reviewed and approved. And we're 7 years down the line, and there's been, now my understanding, well, we haven't seen it, of course, but my understanding is that there is no commercial element. So I'm concerned about this being a consent calendar item because I think the public is going to want to know what's going to be put on that 44-acre parcel as well.
So there's a significant component of commercial still included in the specific plan, a big chunk of commercial as part of the specific plan.
And do we have timing on when the commercial is going to go versus?
That depends on the market.
Market, see, that's
But
what I'm.
this is, we're getting ahead of and arguing what we should be arguing at the the environmental and specific plan document point, and I think
I disagree, and let me say why I disagree. Because we're 7 years down the line, and what happens is these things fold. I mean, after being in the development business for 50 years, I know the kind of games we used to play with various entities, and time has a tendency to fold over itself in the process, and eventually either people forget, or they don't have the same priorities, or people that are nearby die, and that were opposing the project, or whatever the situation is. And now they have confidence that the city council has said, yes, we've got a good concept approval, but it may not be the same animal, and it's going to go to the planning commission. City council's not going to see it. And this is a big development for us. And the idea that the city council is not going to have a word in this, I respect the planning commission, and after being involved with it for so long, I understand what they're charged with, and they are also able to enact legislation. But when it comes down to it, the rubber meets the road right there, and us. So I'm personally uncomfortable with this being a consent item.
So this does come back to city council. We'll go to planning commission with recommendations. Planning commission won't approve, they will recommend approval, and it will come back to city council. And all we're looking at today is a 90-day extension from the repurchase right so that we can finish off these last pieces of the discussion.
Well, at this point, they're good until May. So why do they need a 90-day extension to push it past another, 3 months past that? See, we don't have any dates in here, and that always bothers me. I mean, the only date we've got now is shovel turning by, 90 days after when they were supposed to be doing it. We've got 7 years worth that these guys have had this property, and they haven't done diddle with it, really, other than doing some paperwork that they may have to reimburse us for. I just, I don't know, we're too far down the line not to have been better than this. And in order to classify it that way, I'd have to go through every part and pieces, and I don't think anybody wants to listen to that. So I'll stand pat. I'm uncomfortable with it being a consent item.
Councilmember Allen? Oh. Yeah, I'll get you. I'll get you.
I wanted to ask Mayor Pro Tem Wilson, when you say you're uncomfortable with it being a consent item, you mean after this, do you mean afterwards from today on? Because right now it's not a consent item, but I'm just wondering, when are you talking about in the future it become a consent item? And then, because I have a little bit of question about the on packet page 40 and packet page 48, there's references on both of those to empowering the city manager. Mm-hmm. And in the actual document it says to execute documents on behalf of the city, including but not limited to issuing future approvals, disapprovals, and extensions, and with respect to the DDA. And so I just think that needs a little bit of, are we actually, as a council, going to, were you referring to this in part as us giving up any of our power or authority?
Yes, because, and I'm glad you brought that up. You're right, it's not a consent item, and I think I was looking at my telephone the wrong way. But actually, the requirement here is for the approval, Third Amendment to the Disposition Development Agreement. Lewis is a large corporation, and they know how to plan, and they know how to spend money. At this juncture, we really have a very thin agreement, and I don't feel as if this Third Amendment gives us anything other than to be able to collect money. It doesn't give us any monumentation so far as time other than turning the dirt. It doesn't tell us that we're going to have a particular thing in the ground by a certain time frame. You know, these are the things that are usually put into a development agreement, right down to the flowers on the table. And if you want to go to Irvine or any place in Orange County, you're going to see great examples of that. But Inland Empire historically has always been behind the times when it comes to that aspect. These guys are used to this kind of situation. Rancho Cucamonga is famous for being, you know, nitpicky when it comes to what they're doing. So I think it's about time, since they've had this property off the market now for 7 years, that we have a real game plan going on. And I don't know what they've said, which is what usually happens in these kinds of negotiations, but you know, at least a memo back to them that says this is our understanding of what's going to take place, and collecting money isn't enough.
Mayor, if I may respond.
Reclaim my time.
Hold on.
Real
May
quick.
to clarify,
Go ahead,
that
Tom.
is exactly what we're asking for the extension for, is to negotiate the development agreement that had these timelines, milestones, metrics missing, so we can get them in place so that we can move forward with the project. But it's going to take us a little bit of time to clean up that piece and get it in place. And I think I'm going to answer Councilman Allen's question too, is if you're more comfortable us coming back in 90 days, if it's going to take more than 90 days, to say, look, we need more time, or we've hit a wall, or at the very least, here's where we're at, I'm fine with taking out that section of the city manager to extend or execute, and then we'll bring it back in 90 days. And I think this is big enough for the council to see it and speak and see it again, and do any additional extensions if we need it. I'm fine with that as well.
Well, my question to you would be, is there some sort of an advantage to having it the way that it's in right now, like giving you all this power? Would we be hindering the process any if we took that away from you? Or I don't want to say take it away, but because you've got a lot of power, I know that, but I mean, if we get that 90-day, you know, I mean.
The only thing that, and whatever the wording is here, we can clean up the wording. The only intent is so that if there needs to be additional extensions, we can do this without going to council. That is the entirety of the city manager's ability to do anything with this. Mm-hmm. And that's the intent of that. And I think there's enough, just looking at the council, I think there's enough concern right now that we just take away that entire thing and say, look, if we need more time, we'll come back to the council and we argue on why we need more time. And I'm okay with that.
Because I just have this one sentence on packet page 48, section 34. It says, you know, the city by its execution of this agreement hereby agrees that its city manager or his or her designee, who's, you know, shall in his or her sole and exclusive discretion have the right to execute these documents on behalf of the city. I don't distrust our city manager at all, but I just think that at some level, the council still needs to be involved.
I think it's poorly worded as it is, and I think we can do better on the extension piece, or we're not clear enough. Sorry, Adrian, but we can be a little clearer on where we're headed with that. And if that's a concern, we can, you know, pass the extension, and then we'll come back again if we need additional extensions. And I'm fine with that. The purpose is to give us a little bit of time to really sit down and thoughtfully address this. And sorry if I keep jumping in.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, really briefly. So if you look at the last sentence of that provision, it says, notwithstanding the foregoing, the city manager shall have the right or in his or her discretion to defer any such approval, disapproval, or extension to the city council. So ultimately, he can always send it to the city council, depending on, you know, the significance of the issue. There may be some other deadlines that are, you know, not as critical as this, obviously. But it would be a discussion that I'm sure the city manager and I would have, And if it's this critical, we would obviously bring it to the city council, I think. And going back to Mayor Pro Tem's points, all your points are very well taken. And frankly, when my team reviewed the documents, your points of, schedules and timelines, that's standard from any DDA, any land use development agreement. And so that is, and I'm sure the Lewis Group representative, who's here, I believe is behind me, would agree that we have raised those issues with them. And we are now trying to establish those deadlines and hard requirements that are enforceable to be included in the development agreement. That's the document that's not here yet. That is in the development stage. The thought was that if we keep the deadline, which it was currently, I guess, in May, we wouldn't have as much time to get that negotiated, and they would feel like there was more of a gun to their head type situation, giving a little bit more breathing room so that we can do a stronger negotiation for both parties. That was really just the intent of the 90-day extension.
Councilor Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My viewpoint is counter to those articulated by Mr. Wilson, but particularly Councilmember Allen. The language regarding the city manager making certain decisions to further the project is standard language in disposition and development agreements. I was the redevelopment director for over 25 years, and since we no longer have a redevelopment agency, the city manager served, generally speaking, as the executive director of the redevelopment agency. That position title has been removed for obvious reasons, but once the project forges ahead and activities are occurring on a daily basis, construction activities, you want the manager to be in a position to make those necessary decisions in consultation with Lewis. And if, in fact, it is the desire of the council to have such items come back for council review and approval, I would indicate to you that is counter to industry practice and causes some difficulties in the successful implementation of the schedule of performance. If you have a schedule of performance that identifies the milestones and the dates by which these milestones are to be accomplished, I'm confident enough to guarantee that if the manager has to come back to the city council on such activities that are identified or contemplated by those provisions in the contract, the schedule of performance will be negatively impacted, and it becomes problematic for both the city and the developer. I understand Councilmember Wilson's concerns. I don't share the concerns except to say that those are viable comments. I support his comments. And as the manager has indicated, the development agreement is going to be prepared during this 90-day extension. And many of the concerns, if not all of the concerns addressed tonight, will be articulated in the development agreement. I have just a couple, well, I'll save my questions for later, but I think the agenda item as proposed by the city manager is worthy of positive consideration by the city council. Thank you for your time.
That was deliberation part, but do you have any questions on this item? You kind of went backwards.
I apologize. I have a question regarding the proposed development agreement. Actually, on the reimbursement agreement, what is the methodology for identifying costs that are reimbursable to the city for staff members who worked on this agreement that are no longer employed by the city? And I'm one of those staff members. So what's the methodology that you're going to identify the costs that should be reimbursed to the city?
we went back, actually last year, and tracked hours, staff hours as well as we could, and however hours were assigned and used towards the project, and assign those hours and the cost of the staff time to that. So we came up with a reconciliation about a year ago, and Lewis, we gave them the bill, they paid it. All we're looking at is an agreement that goes forward. They have very conscientiously paid everything we've asked them to pay, and in very good faith. And we do keep track of staff hours as staff is working on this so that we can recover those costs as well.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Yeah, you make a good point that this is a forward-looking agreement as opposed to looking back. And I was wondering how that process worked, but since you've already resolved that with Lewis, I no longer have a concern about that. My next question is is there any overlap between the development agreement, the proposed development agreement, and the proposed specific plan as it relates to development standards, development fees? Are they locked in by the specific plan, or are they locked in by the proposed development agreement?
It's usually by the development agreement.
Is that going to be the case in this instance?
I believe so, yes. I mean, we're negotiating it, but that would be the intent.
The specific plan does not address costs or reimbursement. It addresses development standards.
Just development standards?
Correct,
Right.
just
Okay.
land use.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilman Robles? No questions. No further questions. Open up for public comment. Any public comment on?
And no, Mayor.
Okay, we'll bring it back for a deliberation and a vote.
Mr. Mayor, before you close public comment, did you want to hear from the Lewis representative? He's here, just putting it
If he
out.
wants to give a statement, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, fellow council members. Again, I'll keep my comments brief. You know, as mentioned by the city manager and the city attorney, really the intent of this 90-day extension is just to request some additional time in the event of a third-party delay, not as a result of us or a city action. So for example, if there's a lawsuit as we go to planning commission and city council with our specific plan and our EIR, say we get challenged legally, through CEQA, and we get past the date just because of the fact we got sued. Wasn't something I did, wasn't something the city did. Now we're past the date and you trigger the repurchase right. So really the intent is also, let's say, there's a noticing error for a city council hearing and you have to go back and delay the hearing another month, for example. Wasn't my fault. It was just an error by the city. We all agreed it was not an intent. So really this is additional time to negotiate that development agreement. We did submit a draft of the development agreement back in June of this past summer. And as of tonight, we still have not received comments on it. So we have been very faithfully working towards that. In addition, on the engineering side and just the overall project, we've been working hard on the EIR, obviously, in the specific plan. But we have street improvement plans, we have water improvement plans, storm drain plans that are all at 90% level drawings to begin construction as soon as this project is approved. So not only have we been focused on the entitlements, we are far, far ahead on the final engineering, which is very atypical for a project of this scale. Developers usually get approvals of their entitlements, their specific plan, their land use. Then we start spending money on the final engineering, the roadway plans, the sewer plans. Like I said, we're at 90% drawings for those entire plan sets, which is very atypical. And again, just shows our commitment to how much we want to move this project forward. And again, I apologize for not being as dressed up tonight. I was actually out here with contractors. We have as part of our storm drain plans, for example, some of you know, that whole area is a spaghetti of utilities down there in the southwest corner of the city. A massive spaghetti of utilities. Doug, you know very well. Trying to fit massive storm drain in existing streets. That's a problem. And so we literally walked the entire street network today with our storm drain contractor, trying to make sure our plans actually made sense. We can go build them when we get them approved. So again, this is just showing we're not just focused on the entitlements. We are focused on breaking ground as soon as this project moves ahead as quickly as we can. We had a lot of things in our way. We had the city of Riverside, as we mentioned at the workshop, over the summer. City of Riverside was threatening to sue this project over our stormwater discharge. It took us 2 years to resolve that issue. So again, these are just the things that this project of this scale, for it being smaller than what Lewis typically does, is faced almost with more challenge than what we typically see, which is why that property hasn't been developed in so many years. So again, I appreciate the time to speak briefly. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, any questions for him? No? All right, deliberation and agenda, how we want to vote on this? Councilor Robles?
Yeah, I think, well, at least what I'm feeling is, I think it's part of our fiduciary responsibility to the city. I guess what we're feeling is that perhaps maybe if we would have had a briefing, and of course it would have been closed session because it's, negotiations. And I guess my level of frustration is, and thank you for reminding me, that particular part of land over the years has been stymied by some of the infrastructure concerns. And then we got very excited about your interest, and then we were hit with, 2 or 3 year pandemic, and then interest rates, at 8%. So I guess just from our side, it just feels like, well, given all these things, you and any other developer that we're currently engaged with, you obviously, have to meter your risk. And I guess for me, it's just that there's just been a long period of time where I really don't know what's going on. But, we got the 90 days and, I'm not running for reelection, so when June comes, I mean, there was times that I ran for reelection because I didn't want to miss out on this project. So, but I'm comfortable with this, and I'll move it.
Okay. Councilor Henderson?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't want to repeat myself, but I want to thank Mr. Collier for his comments because I think it outlines for the council and the viewing public and the members of the public that are here tonight the kinds of issues that come up in trying to make a project like this, bring it into fruition. We're talking about a 132-acre specific plan in the southwest corner of the city for property that's been vacant long before Grand Terrace Incorporated and continues to be vacant for all the reasons that Mr. Collier referenced and Councilmember Robles referenced. So it's taking a significant commitment of time and expense and energy on the part of the developer and on the part of the city. And we are, in my view, about to make that final turn before construction on the site begins. And so at this point in time, I think the appropriate thing for the council to favorably consider is to approve the Third Amendment to the Disposition and Development Agreement and the proposed reimbursement agreement. And I hope my colleagues agree with me on that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll second.
Well, we already have a motion by Councilman Robles and a second by Councilman Henderson.
I didn't hear him say he was second. He was giving a second. But
It is approved.
I'll defer to you, Mr. Allen.
All right, who wants a second?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments? No? So we have a motion and 2 seconds. MC Clerk, do we have any public comment before we move forward?
No,
on this?
Mr. Mayor.
City Attorney, do you have anything else to add?
No, sir.
City Manager, anything else to add?
No, sir.
Okay, a motion in 2 seconds. Please vote.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. All right, item 7, City of Grand Terrace legislation platform, Assemblymember Cervantes and State Senator Roth, and advance the California State Assembly and Senate. So, City Manager?
So this is our annual legislative platform update. We did this last year, and as you recall, we worked through our priority projects over the summer. We're still assigning costs to several of the larger ones, but I think in that process we came up with our top issues and the things that are important to us, and those are the ones that we will be submitting this year. So These will be forwarded to the State Assembly and our representatives, and not in a particular prioritized order, but this is kind of without any priority as a group. So the Mount Vernon slope stabilization is again an important one for us. The top of that slope is fairly unstable. We have dirt coming down. Actually, we're here in the next couple weeks going to run the tractor up there and grade off the side again. But that's a significant a project to stabilize that and keep that main street going and clear and safe for us. We're also looking for funding, and actually just had a conversation with the school district that cost is dramatically less than what we would anticipate it to be. It's close. They're giving us a number close to 60 million is what a school costs, not 35. But to encourage the state to provide funding to the Colton Unified School District for the relocation of Grand Terrace Elementary School and to open up that commercial corner for us and to get that school into a safer, more usable place. To have funding for trails and streetscapes and to create a more attractive, livable, and usable community. Law enforcement funding, ALPR cameras, the flock cameras, and neighborhood watch programs to add funding for us to add for public safety. And then the biggest one is stormwater infrastructure and to have funding to begin the initial plans. That $2 million is no way to even begin where's Adam? Is he still here? Oh, he ran away. He saw stormwater and ran away. But as I'm sure you can vouch, the $2 million is no place to even begin to start any construction. But that's about what we're looking at for engineering and preliminary design, and to get us started down that road. So those are, like I said, we took the top ones off the priority list, assigned some dollar values to it, and those are the ones that we will be forwarding to our representatives as the items that we're looking for funding. Any discussions or recommendations?
Does council have any questions? Councilman Henderson?
I think I have questions and observations, Mr. Mayor, in keeping with the recommendation made by the city manager. A couple of things. I think, if not tonight, in a subsequent meeting, the council needs to prioritize these projects as articulated by the city manager. Referencing my own personal professional experience, I can tell you that when you go through a legislative recruitment program and you meet with potential funding agencies like the state or the feds, you're going to get asked the question, which of these priorities is number one, number two, number three? And we have to answer that question as part of our presentations, in both the written presentation and the oral presentation. So I would make a strong recommendation that the city council prioritize those that are already listed from 1 through 5 or 1 through 6 or whatever the case may be. The other comment I would make is that, and I've made this before, we need to include Congressman Pete Aguilar in our recruitment program and articulating what our goals are, what the needs are, and what the proposed funding requested by the city. I receive emails from Congressman Aguilar's office from time to time, I shouldn't say most, but a good number of them boasting about funding that he's provided to other communities, up to and including $750,000 to the city of Rialto. So I'm not sure why we don't include the feds in this process, because in my experience, the chances of receiving funds from the feds are typically 50-50 or even better than with the state. So I would make that recommendation and have my council members, colleagues consider that. My other comment is I just think that with respect to the stormwater infrastructure program, that the project description needs to include some reference to climate change. To me, the language is not dramatic enough. It is not significant enough to articulate what will occur in Grand Terrace if we have a 100-year flood or 50-year flood or whatever the case may be. We may even get a chance to take pictures as early as this weekend as to what happens in Grand Terrace when we have above average rainfall. We also need to note, in my view, that Grand Terrace was permitted, the development occurred under the aegis of the County of San Bernardino. And so the county didn't require storm drain facilities, and so we're left holding the bag, so to speak. And I think we should note that in the project description, because it's a so that our elected officials understand and appreciate the fact that this is an inherited situation and not something that the city of Grand Terrace was lagging on. So to summarize, I think we need to prioritize. I think we need to, I think the project descriptions need to be reviewed. Oh, one other comment. The ALPR program has been superseded by FLOC. You mentioned that, Mr. Manager, and so is that a part and parcel of what we would be proposing?
It's still called ALPR. FLOC is a vendor.
Okay.
So we don't necessarily want to tag it with a specific vendor.
My last comment is we should have a person assigned to our legislative advocacy program so that that person can stay in contact with state officials and their staff members. Mr. Allen, the mayor, and myself met Mr. Cook's chief of staff, and he identified a young lady in his office that does nothing but grant funding. The same thing, we had a communication, Mr. Allen and myself, from Mr. Aguilar's office, identifying staff members that do nothing but that in assisting local governments in his district in acquiring federal funds. And so these programs don't come about, the funding doesn't come about by just making one or two or even three presentations. There needs to be an ongoing effort by city staff connecting the dots with the state, connecting the dots with the feds, and introducing our initiatives with both entities, because we're not going to get funded by both. We're going to get funded by one or the other, or they'll share the funding as appropriate. And we need to give ourselves the best opportunity to make that happen. It's a little bit more than the mayor handing Mr. Cook or someone else our programs and our activities, and that's appears to be the end, the extent of our ongoing effort. The staff effort needs to be there on an ongoing basis in order to give ourselves the best chance at success. One last comment, and I'll quit, and I apologize for being lengthy. The city clerk and myself worked for another local government, and we spent years and years attempting to acquire funds for what is now referred to as the Yucca Loma Bridge in Apple Valley. And all of the things that I discussed, we did year after year. And year after year, we struck out. But we kept plowed ahead. We did the environmental work. And at the end of the day, we received $121 million from the federal government for that bridge that had been in the Apple Valley General Plan, actually the Victor Valley General Plan since 1970. So we identify our priorities and we advocate vigorously for it, and we never stop until we win. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Allen?
Thanks, Mayor. You know, the item that we were looking at, the Mount Vernon slope, are those dollar amounts, are they accurate, up to date, accurate? on not just that, but on the other projects also? Or are those the dollar amounts from previous requests over the years in the past that haven't been updated to reflect the true cost?
They are not updated to our today costs. Those are from last year or previous costs. And with inflation, they're probably going to be higher. So we can buff those up if you like.
I know that we've got an issue going on with Barton Hill right now. I mean, Mayor we were talking about it in the last meeting, and I'm just wondering if it was an either or. It seems like the Barton Hill, if we had to choose, it seems like that one to me, would be more important than the Mount Vernon slope, because it's a major route. It's a thoroughfare. It's a truck route. It's everything. And if we had to choose one or the other, I think that's a pretty important one, more so than the Mount Vernon slope. But I don't know if we would be put in that situation.
The Barton Hill is in risk of an imminent failure, so I'm not willing to set that aside and wait for a grant. That's something we need to do now.
Is there anything like FEMA money or OES money?
There is not.
Okay.
We explored that.
So Mike, I had a question about the Alper cameras. Flocks are considered an Alper camera. Is that correct?
Yes.
For the purpose of this?
For this discussion, yes.
Okay. So
the Flock is the vendor.
Yeah, I understand. I just wouldn't want us to miss out on the opportunity to have those, if we didn't have that description in the request or whatever. But I'm sure that, when you write it up, you'll get it the way it needs to be. So, and then I just noticed that in that particular item, that we're requesting it in the 2021-2022 budget year, according to the thing. So
we'll update the dates.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that it? Councilman Rose, you had a question?
Well, I had some comments, so when we get to that part.
Anybody else have any questions? I do. Like Councilman Henderson and Councilman Allen talked about, the prices, I think we should, why haven't they been updated? What, are we just cutting and pasting, or are we just, because this is a comment too with that question, because when we went to go talk to legislation and we were months late, and like Councilman Henderson said, we brought paperwork with us and asked, which is your priorities? If we're going to do this again, why wasn't it brought up to standards on the inflation? Why wasn't it seemed like more work would be put into this so we can go with the right amount, dollar amount?
Well, those are preliminary estimates, and once we look at this, because there's a dollar amount tied to actually generating the dollar amount. So we'd need to get the engineering studies and see what those real costs would be. We can take those initial numbers and adjust for inflation, okay, which is what we should do. And I agree with you, we were missing that. But to come back and do a real dollar amount requires some engineering and some money to do that study.
Okay, on the school project, when I'm reading it, yeah, it's nice that we want to work with the school, but when you go in there and you're asking for apples and you look like your budget's for oranges, why are we even mentioning the school still? Because I just went to the school district and they just bought a building over there, a high-rise building for their office space. I mean, this might not be a priority for the school district, but we're making it our priority. Why is that? Why are we even working on that? I mean, does the council still want to pursue that about the school, or is there something else we want to look at? I know it's for safety, but the school district's investing money in the corner lot right there right now. I mean, what real is this? Are they really want to do a new school? I mean, I know we bought the property for that school, elementary school, but what is the school district telling you? Do they want to move?
They would move if they had the money, is what I'm hearing, but it's a lot of money, and it may be very reasonable to pull this from our list and leave it to the school district, and we can focus, as Councilman Henderson said, focus on our priorities and not push somebody else's, and be a little more tighter on what we're looking for.
And that's what I agree on, because we really need to take care of our city, and we want to take care of the school, but they have a bunch amount of staff to take care of their own stuff. Okay, that's all the questions I have. Anybody else have any questions? MC Clerk, any public comment?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Bring it back to deliberation. I know Councilman Robles had something.
Yeah, one of the things I was going to report on is that the San Bernardino County Transportation Agency has changed how their dues are set for each jurisdiction, and I voted yes for it. One of the things is that for smaller jurisdictions such as us, we can but beyond the baseline of what our dues are, by subscription, we can have staff work on transportation-related grants. But one of the concerns I have, and I've been in government a long time, and for example, I mean, it was public knowledge. It was in the newspapers. The congressman that we had for this area for a long time, the way you got money was there was a firm affiliated very closely with him that would do lobbying, and those people that used that firm got money. And, you know, there's some firms that I've asked them, I go, for a small city, would you do a small grant? And they said, yeah, because we're there anyways. So, you know, we can represent you. Because there's just no way in hell that we're going to get anything through this process. The only reason we got the generous amount of money for the trail is because the Assemblywoman lived here. And we met with her, and so it was just great timing that she lived here, and we had a session with her, and that was something she took to heart. But this area has been cut up to the point that we're in no man's land. To adhere to the Voting Rights Act, they got us and just set us with Riverside. We don't have any continuity with them, and we don't have any legislative people. There was nothing from this city, you know, on going to that commission and saying, you're hurting us, because now we have representation that we're just this little dot in the things. So I'd like to see on a future agenda item looking at how we can fund some kind of lobbyist to help us. And also, we need a staff person that spends some of their time on legislation. And I think they should come to at least the board meetings for SBCTA, because we're getting a lot of traction now through the efforts of Hagman. He's very inventive. And so, you know, they're pushing their weight around with the Southern California Association of Governments. And the thing that bugs me is federal law requires you have to have a transportation planning agency. But it doesn't say that you have to belong to one that's an entire region. San Diego has their own. Ours includes Orange County, the two inland counties, Riverside, San Bernardino, goes all the way to Ventura and all of LA. And, you know, you think that we're going to get much clout in that setting. And I brought up to them, and I'm going to bring it more strongly to them, is even if it's just Riverside and San Bernardino, that we need to have our own transportation planning agency. And the other, the final thing that in relation to these things is maybe we, you know, some cities would have a retreat with their legislators. You know, and I was kind of, because I've never, in the 11 years that I've been here, I've never gone on legislative day. And and I think it's just one of those things that is to make us feel good, but it's not really, makes us excited. Let's go to Sacramento and meet with our legislators, and it's just, that's all it is. So I concur that we take the school district out of it. What it was that was prime development land for other things, and I'm not sure we can even push any retail at this point. So we could just leave it to chance, and that's all I have to say.
Okay. Anybody else have any more discussion points? Yes.
Councilmember Rollis has touched upon a few issues that are near and dear to my heart. One is that a legislative advocacy program has to be an ongoing 24/7, 365-day-a-year operation. So the legislative days that Councilmember Rollis mentioned, it's like international summits. You have those meetings, you meet with those elected officials when you're succeeded, and at that legislative day, they announce particular awards for the city or county that you represent. I don't want us to fool ourselves in thinking that if we develop these documents and we send them somewhere, that somehow someone's going to take pity on us and actually, fund one of our activities, one of our goals. It does not work that way.
No.
And this legislative advocacy is a relationship business. And the only way you develop those relationships is to keep at it day after day, month after month, year after year. So it's important that we have someone, well, two things. I agree with the legislative, the lobbyist. I think that's the way to get in the program and stay in the program, but we need to have someone on staff that handles the city's business on an ongoing basis. Last, I can't support the school as a priority. As important as it is, all of our priorities are more important than that school. And for $36 million or $60 million, we could have our citywide storm drain infrastructure program. And to me, speaking personally, that's one of my, if not the highest priority. And if we don't do it today, when will we do it? If we don't execute today in terms of trying to take the steps to get some funding for storm drainage program, I think, we place ourselves in the position of prior city councils where they didn't pay attention to an issue that's important to our citizens. If you live on Pico, any east-west corridor, or worse, if you live on Michigan, you know what I'm talking about in terms of the damage that's caused by the water flows. So thank you for listening to me again. I'm hoping that we can prioritize, if not tonight, at a subsequent meeting, those items that remain other than the school item. Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree. I mean, the storm drain should definitely be number one. You look at this and look at the road and like on Barton. I mean, we're only buying time. This is twice, three sinkholes last year? Well, 2 sinkholes in this road going out, that sinkhole over there off of Mount Vernon going all the way, Van Buren going down by the sewer. It's a little sinkhole, thank God, but the big one was Mount Vernon and Van Buren.
We have storm drain issues.
Yeah.
So before you take action then, how about if we come back with this, I'll set it in priorities, pull the school district off and see if we can update some of these numbers and then come back with something that's a little more comprehensive for you to act on. Because I think at this point it's too rough for us to negotiate it from the dais.
Yeah, you're right, and like Councilmember Henderson said on the storm drain thing, we really got to build up. I know everybody hears about climate change, but another issue is, we just had Lewis here with the issue that we had for the storm drainage going down to Riverside, and that's clean drinking water for some people. So, and I know when I talked to Congressman Aguilar's office, that was the big issue I was pushing for, the drinking water issue and water retention. So we'll just bring this item back?
Yeah, we'll bring it back next meeting, and take your comments to heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We'll go ahead and close that item. And future agenda item request. At this time, the city council may propose any items discussed or in action at the future duly agenda city council meeting. Consensus of majority of the quorum is required to place the item on future agenda. Do we have any requests for future agenda items? None? Okay, item I, city council communications. Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I want to compliment the staff for the trunk or treat program that I attended along with my colleagues. From my viewpoint, it was the most well-attended trunk or treat that we've had, and I know a lot of work, hard work went into it, and it showed. And so thank you for a wonderful event. There were so many people there. I told my wife when we were headed home, there can't be any kids in the streets, you know, outside of trunk or treat, because it seemed like every kid in Grand Terrace was at the trunk or treat. But as it turns out, it was a great night for Grand Terrace, because I saw kids and family members throughout the community, even those that hadn't attended the trunk or treat. But my specific compliments to the manager and staff regarding that effort. On Saturday, I attended, along with my colleagues, the Veterans Freedom Park Day, saluting and honoring our veterans. It was wonderful. Mr. Shad Bowl and the Grand Terrace Foundation and others were instrumental in bringing about a wonderful event, and I want to thank them as well. I received calls from friends of mine who are veterans but don't live in Grand Terrace, and they asked, would it be, this was after the event, would it be appropriate for them to attend in the future? And I said, any and all veterans in this country can come to Grand Terrace on any of our days that we salute veterans, the Memorial Day and the Veterans Day on November 11th. So thank you for the community, thank you for the sponsors and the volunteers, and thank you very much for the efforts put forth by Mr. Bowl and his associates in bringing out a very, very successful event. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen.
Thanks, Mayor. Mr. Henderson is accurate in his description. The trunk or treat was a really good, successful event, and my compliments to the city staff for putting it on and hosting it, and very successful event. And I also attended since the last meeting, I attended our Colton Joint Unified School District's Community Cabinet meeting. And this particular cabinet meeting, the subject was diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how it's being implemented in the school district using action plans and resolutions for the marginalized groups. They have an equity task force that they're using that will continue to address this. And they also there was a segment on the junior high school's college and career ready program, where they use, they have increased laboratory and career exploration classroom environments, which leads to the pathway programs that they have at in the various high schools, and which focus a lot on the career and technical education opportunities available to students who may or may not be, interested in going to college. The ethnic studies program at the school district, just to let you know that This is a state requirement for all high school graduates that they have to take the ethnic studies program in California to be able to graduate, and that's by the 2029-2030 school year, which means that the school districts are required to start teaching this in the 2025-2026 year. So they're going to actually start teaching it in the 24, and a year prior to that, to sort of work the bugs out and get the program, see how it develops. I also attended because, we got started with that homeless, the San Bernardino County Office of Homeless Services hosted their annual homeless summit, and I attended that. There were several presentations on what the county's program, which is the Build to Zero program. But one of the things I wanted to leave you with in regards to the homeless summit that I attended, this is what I took away from it that impressed me more than anything else. There are 19,297 students in the Colton Joint Unified School District, which Grand Terrace is a part of. Of that student body, 1,281 of those students are homeless. There's a total of 27,066 homeless students in the San Bernardino Unified School District. 27,000 homeless, K through 12th grade. I just want to leave you with that. I attended the Veterans Day ceremony also on Saturday, and I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to the Inland Empire Community Foundation and the Veterans Wall and Freedom Committee, and of which Mr. Shad Bowl is the chairperson of, and a big shout out to them for the very successful event again. And also I really enjoyed that light show that Mr. Bowl put on at his house. You folks should really take advantage of that. It's a great time. So thanks a lot, Shad, for doing that for us. That's all I got, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Robles.
I didn't report on the October SBCTA meeting, but at that meeting, we voted to increase our dues and also, again, the subscription for more staff support that they're going to bring on. I'm looking at my phone because I'm trying to figure out what the SCAG, there was a lot of moving parts. So I attended the SCAG Housing and Community Development Committee, and one of the things that we moved forward to the regional committee is to do a funding for the, they call it Regional Utilities Supporting Housing Pilot Program, Housing Infill and Public and Private Land Pilot Program. So there should be more coming out of our local transportation agency on what that's going to mean for us locally. And then at the SBCTA Transit Committee, which is a separate meeting, there was SB 921 that's going to supply bridge funding for local transit, and that's our like Omnibus and Metrolink. And as many people know that read the paper or follow the news, is that since the pandemic and people working from home, the use of transit has fallen tremendously. So the state's coming in to backfill it until we figure out some other things. So the staff came with 2 recommendations, well, actually 3. And Metrolink Active Transportation Program Phase 2 project, they asked to use $3.1 million of that for diesel multiple unit to zero emission multiple unit vehicle conversion for SBCTA, $4.5 million, and for Metrolink doing the double track on Lilac to Sycamore, $16 million. So there's 56.2 million left. And my comments concerning this were, do we continue to buttress a system that perhaps can't be buttressed in some cases? And what other things can we think about doing? So with the 56.2 million, there's going to be an ad hoc committee to figure out how to spend that for the rest of us in the valley. And I've asked to be on that subcommittee, so I guess in the next board meeting is when those appointments will be. And my term with SCAG is up in December. And I'm not asking to be put back on there because it's largely informational and educational, and I think it's important to share with my peers that opportunity. And then there's more of us that are stronger participants on the body deliberating. And I just want to say to the community and our staff, what an outstanding job for Halloween. It was absolutely outstanding, and I'm just amazed with the Lions truck or treat. It was pretty amazing. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I did, this is kind of an anomaly, but I did apply in the interest of solidifying our communication ability with the Riverside Highland Water Board, as there was a vacancy in their board. And submitted a resume and so on, and actually did interview. Unfortunately, was not made a committee member, and I think it's just further proof of an isolationist policy that makes it very difficult for us to see eye to eye in some instances. We've had instances where we've attended meetings, gained an understanding, and then unfortunately, because there must be some kind of a lack of continuity, that understanding kind of goes by the wayside. And so it really was with the intention of solidifying that kind of communication medium. Did attend the Halloween event, and the only negative takeaway I would say, Frank, because it was terrific. There was tons of people, tons of kids, and they all seemed to be laughing and smiling as they went around, except for some of the sulky ones, and I was there. But it left me with 12 pounds of candy, because nobody showed up at our house, and we got streetlights. But it was a terrific event, and of course, in the coming years, hope that's something that we continue to do. We talked a little bit about the idea that we might have to have a larger venue because there were so many people. The 8th of November, I attended on behalf of the mayor a discussion roundtable with the San Bernardino County leadership and mayors, Jason Poo, who is the regional administrator for HUD. So he's one step down from the actual secretary for HUD, which is a cabinet member station for the president. And during that time, they talked about, each entity got a chance to stand up and talk about kind of like what Christmas vacation means to me, but it had to do with homeless in their city. And everybody, all the colors of the spectrum are represented in the Inland Empire because you've got little towns and you've got large, over 100,000 people in some of the cities. For example, Fontana has a fairly huge contingency, and they've been dealing with the homeless situation in a different perspective than we get to because they got free land, and they got a lot of it still. And having been involved with the city of Fontana and building some of the, a portion of the city of Fontana, I can understand how it is different for them, but when they asked us to get up, the points that we made were there was nobody there in the meeting with skin in the game. And that has been a discussion point in these kinds of meetings before. Everybody that was there was a community representative, but there wasn't anybody out there that actually made their living. at being able to produce these things. And I'm a great believer in numbers. And, there are private investors, and then there are augmented projects. And the augmented projects usually go towards a Section 8 kind of circumstance. Well, we've got a lot of gradations in our town even, so far as homeless or folks that are, for all intents and purposes, homeless, but they live at their parents' house or their family or something else, or maybe you got 3 or 4 families in the same house. So in the long run, or they're underemployed, there are a lot of gradations involved in there. And it was great to get a quick guide to HUD programs for state and local officials. But what I was really more interested in is the meeting that we've kind of penciled in with Rufus Washington, who is the director of U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in Los Angeles. We haven't set a date yet, but I'd like to find out how they help us, being as small as we are, but yet still having the same problems that everybody else has. And of course, this is the picture of today. It's not 50 years from now. And that's what we have to, be concerned about. So there was a lot to talk about. For the time being, ours is to continue to work with private investors. They come to us, we get together a plan, and it goes in the ground if it pencils. Unfortunately, a lot of penciling has to do with the feasibility of having a shovel-ready project and then financial programs that might be able to make those things come to pass. Long-term, we're looking at a strong redevelopment element, primarily because drywall and plaster never was to intend to last for 100 years. And so when you get down to the brass tacks, there will be people that will move out of our town and they will move to other places. And there may be opportunities there where they can gain a good chunk of money, and we can kind of redevelop some of our areas to address what our current situation is. So there was a lot of discussion, and we took away from a lot of interesting comments and made some good contacts. So I'm really glad we attended that. And then little known, but on the 8th of November, same day, as the roundtable discussion, there was a tree planting ceremony for Don Smith. Don Smith passed away a few months ago, and his wife is still here, but his daughter came down from Santa Barbara, and there were a lot of Lions Club members at the tree planting ceremony, and was really glad to attend. And we all kind of had sort of a makeshift wake about the kinds of things that Don used to participate in that benefited the city at large. And then on the 11th November, attended the Veterans Day celebration, and as is usual, absolutely, a terrific program. It really, my grandfather has his plaque on that wall, and he's probably, the only one that's involved with 1918 to 1920 service. Most of the folks are World War II and above. I plan to put one on there that celebrates a Revolutionary War descendant of mine. But I would encourage anybody that has relatives or knows of a relative or maybe a party to the program to attend. It happens a couple of times a year, and it really is humbling. And I think it's really important if you can get a chance to sit down, some of the older folks in our city can sit down with the kids and the grandkids and so on and talk about some of those experiences, because word of mouth is about the only way they get there. So anyway, appreciate the opportunity to serve, and that's all I've got. Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, the trunk or treat was a great success. Myself and Councilmember Robles was the only members to dress up. So maybe next year we can all dress up. I know you guys are all for that, but if you think about it, if you were a kid, you would just go trick or treating there because you only have to walk maybe 100 feet and you get a bag full of candy. You don't have to go up and down the hills in Grand Terrace. So it's pretty smart. But thank you, city staff, for everything you've done, and for all the cars and the businesses that came out, and it's just getting bigger and better. And I know we got a bigger event coming up November 30th. I'm sure the city manager is going to share that. The Veterans Freedom Day was a great success. Thank you, Shad, and Cars and Coffee for being there. I mean, it's just a great time to reflect, and being a vet, it makes you feel good when people are honoring you, but, also being a vet, you think about all your brothers and sisters who didn't make it home. And so it's a bittersweet thing, but thank you. And maybe you could bring your light show to the Veterans Freedom Park, integrate that. I know it might be a big ask, but maybe one day. But, I brought my grandfather. He's a 90-year-old Korean War vet, 2-time Purple Heart. And he loved the letter that they got from the kids in 2nd grade. I wish I would have brought him, but, the little kids, thank you for, serving our country and protecting us, and we're learning about what it is to be a veteran and stuff. So those are always great to get from the young students from the schools and stuff. So, and he really enjoyed it. Actually, he has his at his new apartment as assisted living. He has it hanging up on the wall, so he reads it. But yeah, the concern, I didn't want to talk about, but, I am concerned about the J.C. Wallace House. I would like to go and maybe do a tour, and maybe one of the council members just to go there and see what's going on. That is a big concern, especially since they were told us all the stuff they're going to do. So that's just a little thing that hit a nerve today, and we want our community safe. We all do on this council. But that's just a thing that I think we need to dive into more about. But thank you, staff, for everything you've done. And I know we're not going to be here Thanksgiving, so I want to wish everybody a blessed Thanksgiving too. All right, and like Councilmember Allen said, I did deal with some of those young men and women who were homeless, those kids, and it's sad. We brought some of them in our house, and it touches your heart. It's no fault of theirs, their parents' choices. So, Thanksgiving, they have, let's look back on everything that you were thankful for through the year and our blessings that we have. And, if you could help somebody in need with a meal, I know the San Bernardino City Mission and all, they have special things. I think they're just taking gift cards now, but even our local churches. But, just look at your families, look at the freedom we have in our country, and, I'm blessed to be on this council with my colleagues here and the city staff. And Grand Terrace is a nice little city that we're blessed to live in. And it's a nice little hometown. It's a small town. And, I know we're not perfect. We have our faults, but we'll just keep going. But we want to continue to make this a safe and beautiful city. So that's all I have. City Manager, you have anything?
Yeah, thank you for acknowledging staff for Trunk or Treat. It was a great success, and next year we're thinking of ways to expand it because it was awful crowded. Those are the kind of problems we want to have. But I do want to also thank the community and the committee members. It wasn't just city staff. There were a lot of citizens involved putting this together, doing a lot of the heavy lifting. And, the Lions Club and Christina Phelps especially put together a lot of work for this. So thank you, everybody involved in that. There is the Smoke Free Outdoors Grand Terrace group is putting on a trash pickup on November 18th, Saturday. They'll be meeting at the Grand Terrace Shopping Center, the grocery outlet center, at 2, and then they'll be wandering the streets picking up trash. So if you'd like to join them or encourage them, please do so. The Veterans event was fantastic. Unfortunately, right after the Veterans event, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't marauding veterans, we had an immense amount of vandalism in the bathrooms, in the park, thousands of dollars of damage to that. So those of you who have children, please discuss with them what the impacts are. You know, now we can't use the bathrooms for a while. That's money that we could spend doing nicer things for the park instead of just repainting and basically replacing toilets that somebody felt they had to break. So if you can have a chat with your kids about why that's not a good thing, that would be great. And I'm glad it happened after the Veterans event, not before. And then the Light Up Grand Terrace will be November 30th. The fire department has offered to deliver Santa Claus for the event, so we're looking forward to that, and it'll be, and once again, that's another one of those. It's staff and a very large committee of residents and citizens involved in this, putting it together and doing really the heavy lifting, and it's great to be part of a community where the residents come together and make these things so successful. And I think that is it for me. Thank you.
So you know who Santa Claus is?
It'll be a surprise.
All right. So like so we're going to honor and close this meeting in Berga. Beautiful lady. She did a lot for this city. And like I said, if she ever hugged you, she'd straighten your back out. She'd give the chiropractor run for her money. And she would tell you she never held anything back either. She would tell you what she's thinking. So, you know, just prayers and comforts with her family. And, you know, and like I said too, you know, just have a joyful, peaceful Thanksgiving, and, you know, just continue to pray for our men and women in service and our first responders who don't get to spend Thanksgiving at home. And so our next regular city council meeting will be held on Tuesday, December 12th at 2023 at 6 p.m. Any request to have an item placed on a future agenda must be made in writing and submitted to the city clerk. So God bless and happy Thanksgiving next week.